The council chamber floated in space, orbiting a dying star that pulsed with blue light. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated spots. Some had wings. Others had scales or fur or bodies made of living crystal. They had not all gathered together like this in 300 years. Today was different. Today, the alarms had started screaming. Ambassador Thelkor stood at the center podium. His insect body clicked and shifted as he spoke. His voice came through the translation devices everyone wore. The beacons have awakened. The devourers are returning. Silence fell across the chamber. It was the kind of silence that weighed heavy, like a stone dropped in deep water. An elder from the Clithax species rose slowly. Her body glowed with soft purple light. 3,000 years, she said. 3,000 years of peace. My grandmother's grandmother fought in the last war. I have only heard stories. Stories that are about to become real again, Thelkor said. His blade arms twitched. The devourers consumed 17 colonies in the old war. They ate worlds. They turned stars cold. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They only hunger. Around the chamber, species began talking all at once. Some shouted. Others made sounds that the translators struggled to convert into words. Fear filled the air like smoke. We must mobilize immediately, said Commander Zrektil, another Vryn warrior. We must prepare the ancient fleets. We must sharpen our weapons and remember our training. Training? Asked a young representative from the Delphics. What training? We have known only peace. Then you will learn war, Zrektil said. His voice was hard. As your ancestors did. As all species must when darkness returns. The chamber erupted again. Species that had not fought in millennia began remembering old battle songs. Others pulled up ancient military databases. The Vryn started planning invasion formations. The Clithax discussed weapon reactivation. Nobody noticed the door opening at the back of the chamber. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked in quickly, her shoes making soft sounds on the metal floor. She was human, shorter than most species there, with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She carried a datapad and looked slightly out of breath. Sorry I'm late, she said, moving toward the human delegation's seat. There was a backup at the wormhole gate. Apparently someone tried to ship livestock through and— Silence. Thelkor's voice cut through the chamber. We face extinction and you speak of traffic? Sarah stopped walking. She looked around at all the faces and face equivalents staring at her. Right, sorry, the devourers. I heard, that's bad. Bad? Zrektil leaned forward. The greatest threat the galaxy has ever known returns and you call it bad? Sarah sat down and pulled up her datapad. I mean, yeah. It's definitely in the top 10 bad things. Maybe top 5. She scrolled through something. Have we confirmed it's actually the devourers? Like check the sensor data? The beacons do not lie, the Clithax elder said. They were built by the first civilization specifically to warn us of the devourers' return. Sure, Sarah said. But the beacons are 3,000 years old. Maybe they're just malfunctioning? Have we tried turning them off and on again? The chamber went quiet again. This time it was a different kind of quiet. This is not a joke, Thelkor said slowly. I'm not joking, Sarah replied. I'm just saying we should verify before we panic. Scientific method and all that. The Vryn do not panic, Zrektil said. We prepare. We have already begun the sharpening ceremony. For 40 days our warriors will meditate and hone their blade arms. Then we will enter the sacred armories and— 40 days? Sarah interrupted. That seems like a long time. What if they show up on day 39? The rituals must be observed, Zrektil said stiffly. This is how war is done. This is how it has always been done. Sarah looked around the chamber. Every species was nodding. They understood rituals. They understood ancient ways. War was serious. War was sacred. War required ceremony. Okay, Sarah said. Quick question, though. Does anyone know what the devourers want? Like, have we tried calling them? Sending a message? Maybe they just want to talk this time. The devourers do not speak, the Clithax elder said. They consume. This is known. Known from 3,000 years ago, Sarah pointed out. People change. Maybe hive minds change too? Thelkor's mandibles clicked in what the translator interpreted as frustration. You are new to the galaxy, humans. You have been spacefaring for only 300 years. You did not fight in the last war. You do not understand. You're right, Sarah said. She stood up. We're new. We don't have the ancient traditions or the warrior ceremonies. We don't know how things have always been done. She walked toward the center podium. Thelcor stepped aside, clearly unsure what to do. But here's what we do have, Sarah continued. We have about 3,000 years of recorded history on Earth. And you know what we learned? We learned that fighting without understanding your enemy is a great way to lose. The Devourers cannot be understood, Zrektil said. Everything can be understood, Sarah replied. That's literally what science is for. She tapped her datapad and images appeared in the air above the podium. Ancient battle footage from the last war. The Devourers were terrible to look at. Ships that seemed alive, hungry, wrong. While you all are preparing your ceremonies, Sarah said, my people are going to do something different. We're going to study these things, learn about them, figure out why they do what they do, and then ask the Clythax elder. Sarah smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much of their own history. Then we'll figure out how to stop them. The council chamber remained silent as Sarah returned to her seat. Outside the windows, the blue star pulsed. Somewhere at the edge of the galaxy, ancient warning beacons screamed into the void. And humans, as they always did, started asking questions. 2 weeks passed. The galaxy transformed itself for war. On the Vryn homeworld, millions of warriors entered the meditation chambers. They stood perfectly still, blade arms extended, preparing their minds for battle. The ceremonies had been passed down for generations. Every movement had meaning. Every breath was controlled. The Clythax reactivated their ancient weapon forges. Purple fire burned in facilities that had been cold for millennia. Engineers worked day and night, remembering techniques their ancestors had used. They sang old songs while they worked, songs about sacrifice and honor. 12 other species began similar preparations. War was a sacred thing. It required respect. It required tradition. On Earth, humans did something different. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center of Earth's defense headquarters. Screens covered every wall, showing data, maps, and analysis. Hundreds of people worked at stations talking quickly, comparing notes. What do we have? Marcus asked. Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from her screen. We've analyzed every second of footage from the last war, 3,000 hours of battle recordings. We've been running psychological models. And the Devourers are consistent. Too consistent. Yuki pulled up a diagram. They always attack the same way. Always consume resources in the same order. Always broadcast the same psychic intimidation patterns. Marcus frowned. That's their strength? No, Admiral. That's their weakness. They don't adapt. They follow a pattern because it worked for millions of years. Yuki smiled. They've never fought someone who fights back differently. Across the room, Lieutenant James Park was doing something that would have horrified the Galactic Council. He was laughing while watching Devourer footage. You okay, Park? Marcus called out. Sorry, sir. It's just... Look at this. James played a clip. A Devourer ship consumed a small moon, its organic weapons tearing through rock. They're trying so hard to look scary. They are scary, someone else said. Oh, definitely, James agreed. But they're also predictable. Watch. He played several clips in sequence. Same entrance, same positioning, same psychic broadcast. It's like they're following a script. Marcus walked over. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they've never encountered improvisation, sir. Meanwhile, on the Vryn command ship, Commander Zrektil reviewed his fleet formations. Everything was precise. Every ship knew its position. Every warrior knew their duty. This was how the Vryn fought. This was how they had always fought. His communication panel beeped. A message from Earth's military. Commander Zrektil, this is Admiral Webb. We'd like to share some tactical analysis with you. Zrektil felt his mandibles tighten. The Vryn do not need human tactics. We have fought wars since before your species left your planet. I understand, Commander. Just take a look at the data we're sending, please. The file arrived. Zrektil opened it, expecting to see simple weapon specifications or fleet numbers. Instead, he found something strange: psychological profiles, behavior analysis, predictions about devourer responses to different stimuli, and strangest of all, a section titled Potential Exploits in Enemy Pattern Recognition. "What is this?" Zrektil muttered. Another Vryn warrior approached. "Commander, the humans have published something on their information network. They are calling it memes." "Memes?" The warrior showed him. Images with text, jokes about the devourers, funny pictures comparing devourer ships to Earth creatures. One showed a devourer with text reading, "Traveled across the galaxy, still can't find intelligent life." "This is disrespectful," Zrektil said. "War is sacred." "The humans are sharing these across their entire species," the warrior said. "Millions of them are making jokes." Zrektil contacted Admiral Webb again. "What is your species doing?" "This is a war, not entertainment." Marcus appeared on the screen. He looked tired. "Commander, can I ask you something? When your warriors meditate, what are they preparing for?" "They prepare their minds to face death without fear." "Right. Fear management." Marcus leaned forward. "That's what we're doing too, just differently. Humans make jokes when we're scared. It's how we cope. It's how we've survived everything that tried to kill us. The devourers are not something to joke about." "I know. But if we don't laugh, we'll panic. And panic gets you killed." Zrektil ended the call. He did not understand humans. Back on Earth, Sarah Chen met with her team. They sat around a table covered with papers, data pads, and coffee cups. "The council is angry," one of her assistants said. "They say we're not taking this seriously." "We're taking it very seriously," Sarah replied. "We're just not taking it traditionally." She stood and walked to the window. Earth hung below, blue and green. "Every species out there is preparing to fight the war they remember, the war from the history books." "And we're not?" her assistant asked. "We're preparing to fight the war that's actually coming." Sarah turned back to the group. "The devourers feed on fear. Every species knows this. But everyone's response is to meet them with traditional bravery, traditional weapons, traditional tactics. What's wrong with that?" "Nothing. Except the devourers have seen all of it before. They've consumed hundreds of species. They know how bravery looks. They know how traditional warfare works." Sarah smiled. "But they've never encountered chaos, randomness, absurdity." Her communication device beeped. "A call from the military. Ambassador, we're ready for the broadcast test," a voice said. "Excellent. Send it." Across the galaxy, every species monitoring human communications suddenly received something strange, a transmission that should have been military planning. Instead, it was a video. A human stood in front of a camera. "Hey, devourers," he said cheerfully. "Heard you're coming back." Cool. Just wanted to let you know. We've got this thing called taxes we'd love to explain to you. Also parking tickets and extended car warranties. Really excited to share our culture." The video ended. On 17 different ships, 17 different species had the same reaction. "What?" they all said simultaneously. "Was that?" Commander Zrektil stared at his screen in disbelief. He opened a channel to Admiral Webb again. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Marcus looked at him calmly. "Psychological warfare, Commander. The devourers expect fear. They expect battle cries and weapons. They don't expect this. This is madness." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But it's our madness. And we're pretty good at it." He closed the channel, leaving Zrektil staring at a blank screen, trying to understand the species that fought death with jokes. Outside, in the darkness between stars, the devourers drew closer. They had consumed 1,000 species. They had ended countless civilizations. They brought hunger and darkness and fear. They had never encountered humanity. That was about to change. The devourers arrived at the Outer Rim on a Tuesday. The first colony to see them was called Haven's Gate. 2 million Clithax lived there, mining rare minerals from the asteroid field. They had sensors. They had warnings. They watched the darkness between stars tear open like a wound. The ships that came through were wrong. They looked alive, like creatures that had been twisted into the shape of vessels. Organic metal, pulsing lights, weapons that grew from their hulls like thorns. The colony's defense coordinator sent an immediate message to the Galactic Fleet. They're here. Just like the old recordings. Exactly like them. Then the psychic broadcast hit. Every Clythax on Haven's Gate felt it at the same moment. Terror. Pure, overwhelming terror. Not thoughts, not words, just the feeling that death was coming and there was no escape. Some collapsed. Others fled. It was instinct, programmed by millions of years of evolution. When the predator roars, prey runs. The Galactic Fleet arrived within hours. Commander Zrektil led the Vryn forces. 20 battleships, each one bristling with warriors who had completed their meditation. They were ready. Formation Alpha, Zrektil commanded, as practiced, as tradition demands. The Vryn ships moved into perfect positions, creating a wall between the Devourers and Haven's Gate. Every warrior was in place. Every weapon was charged. Broadcast the war chant, Zrektil ordered. Across all frequencies, the Vryn declared their presence. Ancient words in their language, speaking of honor and sacrifice and the glory of battle. It was meant to inspire courage, to show the enemy that the Vryn did not fear death. The Devourers responded with their psychic scream. It hit the fleet like a hammer. Even the trained warriors felt it. Some fought through it. Others hesitated for just a moment. In space combat, a moment was enough. The Devourer ships moved. They were fast, faster than anything their size should be. Their weapons fired, organic projectiles that seemed to hunt their targets. 3 Vryn ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. Hold formation, Zrektil commanded.
Fire at will.
The Vryn fought bravely. They followed every rule, every tactic from the ancient manuals. They died bravely too. In 15 minutes, 12 Vryn ships were gone. Retreat, Zrektil finally ordered, his voice heavy. Fall back to regroup Point Delta. The surviving Vryn ships pulled away. The Devourers did not pursue. They never did. They had a pattern to follow. First consume the colony, then move to the next one. Haven's Gate went silent. 3 days later, the Devourers reached the second Rim colonies. This time, the Clythax fleet met them. They used their ancient plasma lances, weapons that had been stored for 3,000 years. The lances were beautiful, purple fire that could cut through almost anything. The Devourers absorbed the fire and kept coming. The Clythax lost 6 ships before retreating. The galaxy watched. Fear spread from system to system. The Devourers were exactly as terrible as remembered. Nothing had changed. Nothing worked. Then the human fleet arrived. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the UHSF Inappropriate Response, watching the Devourers approach the third rim. Her crew was ready. Sort of. All stations check in, she said. Weapons ready, Lieutenant Park reported. Also, Jenkins wants to know if we're really doing this. Tell Jenkins, yes, we're really doing this. He says it's insane. Tell him that's the point. The Devourers came closer. Maria could feel the psychic broadcast starting to press against her mind. Fear, hunger, death. Open a channel, she ordered. All frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Maria took a breath. Attention, Devourers. This is Captain Maria Santos of the United Human Space Fleet ship. Well, you can probably read the name on the hull. Before we start shooting at each other, I wanted to share something with you. She nodded to Park. Music started playing across every frequency. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Across the human fleet, 23 ships began broadcasting the same song. Rick Astley's voice echoed through space. The Devourers stopped moving. Are they confused? Park asked. Yep, Maria smiled. Now, execute Protocol Annoyance Phase 2. The human ships broke formation. Not in retreat, in chaos. They scattered in seemingly random directions, moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. Some flew straight at the Devourers, then veered off at the last second. Others spun in place. One ship flew upside down. The Devourers tried to target them. Their weapons tracked the nearest ship, fired, missed as the human vessel did something no sane pilot would do. A barrel rolled directly into an asteroid field. Devourer ships adjusting, Park reported. They're slowing down. They don't know which target to prioritize. Good. Keep them confused. All ships begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was even worse. The human ships started broadcasting different things. One sent recipes for chocolate chip cookies. Another sent the complete works of Shakespeare. A third sent a 10-hour loop of someone explaining tax law. "Captain," Park said, trying not to laugh. "The Devourers are receiving data they can't process. Their pattern recognition is overloading." "Excellent. Now while they're distracted, hit them." The human ships, which had seemed to be flying randomly, suddenly snapped into a coordinated attack pattern. They struck from 12 directions at once, targeting specific points on the Devourer hulls that analysis had marked as vulnerable. 3 Devourer ships took heavy damage. One actually retreated. "They retreated," Park said in disbelief. "Devourers don't retreat." "They do when they don't understand what's happening," Maria replied. "Keep pressure on them. All ships, random nonsense on all channels. Don't let them think." For the next hour, the human fleet did things that would have gotten them court-martialed in any traditional military. They sent joke transmissions. They flew in illogical patterns. They played music, broadcast Earth television shows, and at one point live-streamed a cooking demonstration. The Devourers, which had consumed countless civilizations with their consistent, proven tactics, couldn't adapt. Every time they tried to follow their attack pattern, humans did something unpredictable. Commander Zrektil, watching from his command ship, couldn't believe what he was seeing. "They're winning?" "Not winning," his tactical officer corrected. "But not losing either. The Devourers are stalled." Zrektil opened a channel to the inappropriate response. "Captain Santos, what are you doing?" Maria appeared on screen. Behind her, someone was dressed in a chicken costume for reasons Zrektil couldn't understand. "Fighting a war, Commander." "That is not fighting. That is chaos." "Exactly." Maria grinned. "The Devourers are a hive mind. They think in patterns. They expect order. We're giving them disorder. This is not honorable combat. Commander, with all respect, honor doesn't work if you're dead. We're keeping them confused while we figure out how to actually beat them." She paused. "Want to help? We could use ships that can shoot straight while we're busy being weird." Zrektil looked at his crew. Every warrior was staring at the screen, watching humans fight the unkillable enemy by annoying it. "This is insane," Zrektil muttered, but he gave the order. "Move in to support the human fleet." As the Vryn ships joined the battle, following the humans' chaotic lead, something unprecedented happened. The Devourers began to withdraw, not retreat, not surrender. They simply stopped, confused by an enemy they couldn't understand, and pulled back to regroup. In 3,000 years of terror, they had never done that before. Maria Santos watched them go and smiled. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "Now let's figure out Phase 2. The Galactic Council met again, but this time the mood was different. They were confused. "The Devourers have stopped advancing," the Clithax Elder said. "For 3 weeks they have remained at the outer rim. They are waiting. Analyzing," Ambassador Sarah Chen corrected. She stood at the podium, looking tired but alert. "They're trying to understand what humans did. Their hive mind is processing something it's never encountered before." "Chaos," Thelkor said. He didn't sound angry anymore, just uncertain. "You fought them with chaos. We fought them with unpredictability," Sarah clarified. "There's a difference. What we did was carefully planned chaos." "That makes no sense," Zrektil said, but he was listening now. Sarah pulled up a holographic display. "The Devourers are a hive mind. Millions of individual organisms thinking as one. That's their strength, perfect coordination. But it's also their weakness. They can only process information one way. They follow patterns because patterns work." "This we know," the Clithax Elder said. "Right. But here's what we learned. When you give a pattern-based intelligence too many conflicting patterns at once, it stalls. It has to stop and analyze. It can't fight and think at the same time." Screens appeared around the chamber showing human analysis. Graphs, data, predictions. It was more information than any species had gathered about the Devourers in 3,000 years. While our ships were broadcasting nonsense, our scientists were recording everything. Every reaction, every hesitation. We've mapped their decision-making process. Sarah highlighted sections of the data. "And we found the nodes." "Nodes?" Thelkor leaned forward. "Command centers. The Devourers aren't just one mind, they're organized in layers. Queen minds that control sector minds that control ship minds. If we can disrupt the queen mind, The entire structure falls apart, Zrektil finished. His eyes widened. You found their weakness. We found a weakness, Sarah corrected. Now we need to exploit it. Admiral Marcus Webb appeared on the main screen from Earth's command center. We're sharing all of this data with every fleet in the galaxy. The Devourers are about to learn what happens when you give humanity 3 weeks to study you. The council chamber was silent for a moment. Then species began talking at once, but this time it was different. They weren't arguing. They were planning. In orbit around 12 different worlds, the combined galactic fleet prepared for the largest coordinated strike in history. Vryn warriors stood ready. Clythax engineers prepared their weapons. 30 other species contributed their forces, and humans coordinated it all. This is insane, Lieutenant Park said from his station on the inappropriate response. We're about to attack the Devourers. On purpose. Technically, we've been attacking them for weeks, Captain Maria Santos replied. Now we're just doing it with better aim. The fleet moved as one, jumping through wormholes to the outer rim. The Devourers were waiting, their ships arranged in the pattern they always used. Perfect formation, perfect positioning. The psychic broadcast hit immediately. Fear, terror, run. All human ships begin counter-broadcast, Maria ordered. Across the fleet, human vessels started transmitting. Not music this time. Something different. Comedy. Stand-up routines from Earth's history. Sitcom episodes. Funny movies. Jokes, puns, slapstick satire. Thousands of years of humanity's collected attempts to laugh at darkness. The Devourer's psychic scream wavered. It's working, Park reported. Their broadcast is becoming unstable. They're confused by the emotional response. Good. All Allied ships begin attack pattern Santos 7. The galactic fleet moved. But this time, they didn't follow traditional tactics. Guided by human analysis, they struck at specific points. Ships that the data identified as node carriers. The Queen Mines, the Devourers responded, but slower than usual. Their perfect coordination was imperfect now. Ships hesitated. Some moved to defend while others attacked. The hive mind was arguing with itself. They're fragmenting, Zrektil reported from his command ship. His warriors were fighting alongside humans now, targeting the nodes. Your plan is working, Admiral Webb. Don't celebrate yet, Marcus replied from Earth. The primary Queen Mind is still intact. Until we hit that, they can reorganize. Maria checked her sensors. Found it.
Biggest ship in the center of their formation.
Reading massive psychic activity. That's our target. All fleets converge. What happened next would be recorded in history files across the galaxy. Every available ship moved toward the center of the Devourer formation. The enemy tried to stop them, but their coordination was broken. Some ships defended perfectly while others barely reacted. The human ships led the charge, broadcasting increasingly absurd content. One ship sent a documentary about how bread was made. Another sent a philosophical debate about whether hot dogs were sandwiches. A third sent 10 hours of elevator music, and through it all the combined fleet fought. Not with honor or tradition or sacred rituals, they fought with purpose, with coordination, with a simple determination to survive. We're in range of the Queen ship, Maria announced. All vessels concentrate fire. Every weapon in the fleet fired at once. Traditional plasma lances from the Clythax, kinetic weapons from the Vryn, missile salvos from a dozen other species, and from the humans, specialized disruption weapons they'd built specifically for this moment. The Queen ship's shields held for exactly 7 seconds. Then they failed. The moment the shields fell, something unprecedented happened. The Devourer's psychic broadcast changed. For 3,000 years, it had only ever broadcast one thing: fear. Now suddenly, it broadcast something else: confusion, uncertainty, and, impossibly, something that almost felt like doubt. Their communication network is destabilizing, Park shouted over the noise of battle. The Queen Mind is trying to process too many contradictory inputs. The other nodes don't know what to do. Hit them again, Maria ordered. All ships, full assault. The fleet fired again. And again. The Queen ship began to break apart, its organic hull splitting open. Through the gaps, strange light poured out, the psychic energy of the hive mind itself, no longer contained, and then, across every frequency, every channel, every psychic wavelength, the Devourers did something they had never done in their millions of years of existence. They laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. It was confused, fractured, wrong. The hive mind, infected with thousands of hours of human comedy, couldn't process what laughter meant. It tried to understand, tried to categorize it, failed. The Queen ship exploded. Across the Devourer fleet, ships went dark. Without the Queen mind to coordinate them, the individual vessels didn't know what to do. Some tried to attack, others retreated. Most just stopped. Cease fire, Marcus ordered. Hold position. The fleet stopped shooting. In the sudden quiet, everyone watched the Devourer ships. They were drifting now, their perfect formation broken, their collective consciousness shattered into fragments that couldn't communicate with each other anymore. Are they defeated? Thelcor asked over the command channel. Not defeated, Sarah Chen replied. She was watching the sensor data with intense focus. Fragmented. The hive mind broke apart. Each ship is thinking independently now. Maybe for the first time ever. Will they attack again? Everyone watched as one by one, the Devourer ships turned and jumped away. Not in formation, not following a pattern, each one choosing its own direction, fleeing into the darkness between stars. No, Sarah said quietly. I don't think they will. The battle was over. The galaxy was silent. Then from the human fleet someone started cheering. It spread quickly, first to other human ships, then to species that understood the sound. Even the Vryn, who did not cheer traditionally, made sounds of victory. They had won. Not with ancient tactics or sacred rituals or honorable combat. They had won by being unpredictable, by being strange, by being human. Commander Zrektil opened a channel to the inappropriate response. Captain Santos, he said, I believe I owe your species an apology. Maria grinned. Commander, I think you owe us a drink. A really strong one. 6 months after the battle, the Galactic Council convened for what some were calling the most important session in 3,000 years. The chamber looked the same, species sitting in their designated spots, the blue star pulsing outside the windows. But everything felt different. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the podium again, but this time she wasn't alone. Admiral Marcus Webb stood beside her. So did Captain Maria Santos, still wearing her uniform with the ship patch that read, Inappropriate Response. The Devourers have not returned, Thelcor announced to the chamber. Scout reports confirm they scattered to different sectors of deep space. Their fleet is gone, fragmented, Sarah corrected gently. They're not gone. They're just not a hive mind anymore. Each ship is thinking for itself now. Some might come back someday, but not as the unified force they were. The Clythax elder spoke next. Her voice was thoughtful. We followed the ancient ways. We performed the rituals our ancestors taught us. We fought with honor and tradition, she paused, and we were losing, until the humans showed us a different way. A disrespectful way, someone muttered from the back. It was a Rorvan delegate, a species known for their military traditions. An effective way, Commander Zrektil countered. He stood, his blade arms folded in what, for a Vryn, was a gesture of respect. I fought alongside the humans. I watched them turn chaos into strategy. I watched them study the enemy while we prepared ceremonies. I thought them cowards at first. I was wrong. We're not special, Marcus said. He stepped forward. We just approached the problem differently. You all remembered the last war. The tactics, the strategies, the honor. We looked at the actual enemy in front of us and asked, what do they not expect? You turned war into a joke, the Rorvan delegate said. No, Maria replied. We used humor as a weapon. There's a difference, she pulled up a holographic display. Every human on my ship was terrified. The psychic broadcasts affected us just like everyone else. But we've learned something over thousands of years of our own history. When you're scared, you have two choices. Let the fear control you or laugh at it. Laughing doesn't kill fear, the Rorvan said. No, Maria agreed. But it does give you space to think. And thinking kills enemies. Sarah took over, pulling up more data. The Council has asked us to prepare a report on human military doctrine. Honestly, we don't have one unified doctrine. We've fought too many different ways over our history, but we can share what we learned about fighting the Devourers. The data filled the screens. Analysis tactics, psychological profiles, months of human research distilled into formats other species could use. We're sharing all of this freely, Sarah said. No cost, no trade agreements. Because next time something like the Devourers shows up, we need every species to be able to adapt. Next time? Thelcor's mandibles clicked nervously. You think they'll return? Something will, Marcus said quietly. The galaxy is a big place. There are always threats. Maybe not the Devourers specifically, but something. That's why we're proposing something new. Sarah pulled up another display. The Department of Adaptive Strategy, a joint council division that studies threats not just as they were, but as they are. That questions traditional approaches. That asks what if we tried something different? The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species loved the idea. Others found it offensive to their traditions. Arguments flew back and forth in 24 languages. The Clythax elder raised her hand for silence. I have a question for the humans. This approach of yours, this adaptability, does it work for everything? Or only for beings like the Devourers? Everything, Maria said. Because it's not about specific tactics. It's about being willing to change when change is needed. Zrektil stood again. I support this proposal. The Vryn will contribute warriors to this department. We will learn these new ways while maintaining our traditions. As will the Clythax, the elder said. One by one, species voiced their support. Not everyone agreed. Some still believed the old ways were best, but enough understood that the galaxy had changed. After the vote passed, Sarah found herself standing at the observation deck with Zrektil. They watched the blue star together in silence for a moment. I still don't understand you, Zrektil said finally. Your species makes jokes about death, about war, about everything. That's how we survive, Sarah replied. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. Weather, predators, diseases, and eventually ourselves. We learned that if you can't laugh at how absurd existence is, you'll go insane. And this makes you strong? Sarah smiled. It makes us flexible. We take things seriously, Commander. We really do. But we don't let seriousness paralyze us. There's a difference between respecting danger and being controlled by it. Zrektil was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice that sounded almost uncertain, he said, The human park told me something. A joke, he said, why don't Devourers ever win at cards? I told him I didn't know. He said, because they always show their hand. Zrektil paused. I didn't understand it at first. But later I realized it was accurate. They did show their patterns. Their hand, as you say. That's a terrible joke, Sarah said. Yes, but also effective? Sarah laughed. It was a genuine warm sound. Yeah, Commander. That's the point. Even bad jokes make you think differently. 3 months later, the Department of Adaptive Strategy opened its first training facility. Young warriors from 12 species trained alongside human instructors. They learned traditional tactics, but they also learned to question, to adapt, to think creatively. On the first day, a young Vryn student asked his human instructor, Are we here to learn how to joke during battle? The instructor, a veteran of the Devourer War, smiled. No, you're here to learn how to think during battle. The jokes are just to keep you from freezing up with fear. Will there be a test? Every real battle is a test, and unlike school tests, the questions are always different. Meanwhile, on Earth, Maria Santos was giving a lecture to a room full of cadets. The galaxy thinks we won because we were funny, she said. That's not quite right. We won because we were scared, smart, and stubborn. The humor was just a tool. The real weapon was our willingness to try something new. Will it work again? A cadet asked. If there's another threat? Maybe, maybe not, Maria shrugged. The point is, we won't know until we try. And that's okay. Every problem requires a different solution. The species that survives is the one that can adapt. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, a new monument was being installed. It showed representatives from all 47 species standing together. At the center, slightly smaller than the others but clearly visible, stood the human figure. The plaque beneath it read, In memory of the 3,000-year peace, and in honor of the new understanding. May we remember the past, adapt to the present, and prepare flexibly for the future. Sarah Chen attended the dedication ceremony. Afterward, she stood with Thelkor. Your species changed the galaxy, he said. We just showed you a different perspective, Sarah replied. You could have learned it from anyone eventually, but we learned it from you, the species that makes jokes while fighting extinction. Sarah looked up at the monument. You want to know the real secret, Thelkor? We weren't sure it would work. We were terrified. We just didn't let terror stop us from trying. Is that what makes humans special? No, that's what makes any species special. The willingness to try. That night, across the galaxy, a new tradition began. Human ships broadcasted comedy shows to other species. Some didn't understand them. Others found them strange. But slowly, they began to appreciate the idea behind them, that laughter wasn't weakness. It was resilience. In the deep darkness of space, scattered devourer ships drifted alone. Their hive mind was broken. For the first time in their existence, they were individuals. Some continued hunting, following old patterns. Others stopped, confused by their new independence. And a few, influenced by the strange broadcasts they'd absorbed during the battle, began to wonder. About themselves. About purpose. About the strange species that had defeated them not with force, but with chaos and laughter. The galaxy would never be the same. Sarah Chen sat in her quarters, looking at messages from Earth. Her daughter had sent a video, just a child making faces at the camera, being silly. Sarah smiled. That's the real weapon, she muttered to herself. The ability to be silly even when the universe is trying to kill you. Outside her window, stars shone steadily. Somewhere in the vast darkness, new threats were waiting. New challenges, new impossibilities. The galaxy was ready now. Not just with weapons and fleets and ancient traditions, but with something else. Something the Devourers had never encountered. And future enemies wouldn't expect. Hope, flexibility, and the strange, powerful human instinct to laugh at the void. The 3,000-year peace was over. But maybe, just maybe, a better understanding had begun. And in the Department of Adaptive Strategy's new headquarters, the motto above the door read simply, "When in doubt, try something weird."